So next up, let's talk about browser titles. Now, what do I mean by a browser title and where is it displayed? Well, one common mistake is it's not the title that you see at the top of the page. This is just the content title. You can update this to be whatever you want with inside of RapidWeaver. The browser title is displayed inside of the tab bar, inside of Safari or Chrome. It's also used when it's shared on social media or inside of messaging apps. So let's have a look at that now inside of Safari. Press Command P on your keyboard to preview your site. Now here you can see in the tab bar, often by default inside of themes, you will get something like home and then the pipe character and then your site title. Now this is perfectly fine. It does kind of describe the content on the page. We're saying this is the home page of the RapidWeaver community, but it's not really including any of our keywords, and it's not really describing the content in any meaningful way to users or visitors or search engine bots. So how might we improve this? Well, let's go back to RapidWeaver, and if you open up the page inspector again and go to the general settings, you'll see a metadata section with the browser title, and we can update that here. Now if we were to go back to Safari and refresh, you'll see that we've updated the title. So this is how you customize the browser title for each individual page. And you're going to want to do this, I would say, for pretty much every single page on your site. Now, what is the goal with the browser title? Well, again, it is to describe the content on the page to search engine bots. In the same way we did with the SEO friendly URLs, we want to target our chosen keywords or keyword phrases and use that inside of both the URL and the browser title to describe the content. So on the homepage, for example, what are we doing here? We're listing out RapidWeaver add-ons and video tutorials. So a more relevant browser title might be something like find add-ons and tutorials for RapidWeaver, then a pipe character, and then the site title, which is obviously RapidWeaver community. So if we go and preview that in the browser, now we're starting to describe the content in a more meaningful way. So again, we have some keywords inside of the browser title here. So add-ons, tutorials, and RapidWeaver. These are kind of the recurring keywords that we're going to be targeting for the entire site. Now we're going to look at researching keywords and keyword phrases later on in the course, but this is just a good primer to get you thinking about how you can use keywords inside of your browser titles as well as the URLs. Now, as I mentioned, what we'll also want to do is match the keywords in our URLs to the browser titles. So let's go to the Foundry details page here. And again, our URL is add-on, stacks, and then Foundry. So 3 or 4 keywords that we want to target here: RapidWeaver, add-ons, stacks, and Foundry. So right now the browser title is the default of Foundry, the pipe character, and then the site title. So essentially this is the page title and the site title. Again, perfectly fine, but we can do a lot better here to improve our SEO. So let's hop back to RapidWeaver. We've got the Foundry page open, and in the metadata settings here, let's have a think about what we could do to include some of those keywords. So we might say something like Foundry RapidWeaver stack by Elixir, and then the pipe character, and then RapidWeaver community. So if we go and preview that, now we can start to see we've got the keywords Foundry, RapidWeaver stack, all inside of the browser title as well as the URL. Again, add-ons, stacks, and Foundry. Now we don't have add-ons inside of the browser title, so we might want to include that. We could say perhaps something like the Foundry RapidWeaver add-on, and then we could add a pipe character to separate the title a little bit and just make it a bit more readable. So if we preview that, you can see we have the Foundry RapidWeaver add-on, a stack by Elixir on the RapidWeaver community. This is perhaps getting a little bit wordy. We might be overthinking it a little bit. Maybe the cleaner URL or the cleaner browser title, sorry, that we had before would be better. Or maybe we just want to say the Foundry Stack by Elixir on the RapidWeaver community. Or again, you could say something like add-ons, or you can just add RapidWeaver add-ons as the browser title, like so. So if we refresh that, now we get the Foundry Stack by Elixir, and that is a RapidWeaver add-on. Now, as I've already mentioned a couple of times, this is really going to depend on the content of your site and how you want to separate it up into different sections. If I were to have defined areas of my site, like we've started to set up here with the add-ons and the stack separate folder, like I say, you might want to separate the browser title with the pipe character to give you those defined areas. Separating it with the pipe character doesn't necessarily give you any SEO benefits, but it does make the browser title more readable, and it just feels like it explains the content better to not only visitors but the search engine bots. So we're kind of saying here, this is the Foundry Stack, it's inside of the RapidWeaver Stacks add-ons, and it's on the RapidWeaver community. So again, if we wanted to do something like that, we could just say the Foundry Stack, or we could say Foundry by Elixir perhaps. Then we could have a pipe character, and we could say this is a stack, and then we could say that's the RapidWeaver add-ons. Whoops, let me spell that right. RapidWeaver add-ons, and that's on the RapidWeaver community, like so. So again, that's getting a little bit wordy. It feels a little bit more spammy. We've got RapidWeaver in there twice. Maybe we could just remove the first RapidWeaver, refresh that, and we have Foundry by Elixir, Stacks, Add-ons, RapidWeaver Community. Now, another key thing to note here is that the main keywords that you want to target should be at the front of the browser title. Search engine bots don't care about your company name. What you'll often see is people think their company name is the most important thing. It really isn't. It's the content on the page and how you describe that to the search engine bots. The most relevant keywords for this page, it's not RapidWeaver Community, it's Foundry and Stacks and Add-ons. Those are the more relevant keywords that are going to make your page found inside of search engines. So the key point is, do not put your company name at the beginning of the browser title. Search engines will place more weight on the keywords at the beginning of the browser title than the ones at the end. So if I were to reverse this and say RapidWeaver Community at the front, I'd be damaging my search engine ranking simply because I wanted my company name at the beginning. Now, one exception to this rule is if your company name is what you want to be found for. So if I thought that everyone was just searching for RapidWeaver Community, I would put more weight on those two keywords and then perhaps move it to the beginning of the browser titles. But it's not. I know that people are searching for RapidWeaver Foundry or RapidWeaver Stacks and Foundry. I know those are the more important keywords that I need to be found for. So that, together with describing the content on the page, is why I set my browser titles up in this way. So to illustrate this further, let's go to the video section on our site and update the browser titles here. For the main videos page, I'm going to say RapidWeaver Tutorials and just leave it as that for videos and go back and refresh. And there you can see we literally just have RapidWeaver Tutorials as the browser title. Now again, we might want to add our company name, so we could add the pipe character and say RapidWeaver Community. Now, it is generally a good practice just to add your company name at the end, like I say, so we'll do that. And for now, that will do. That kind of describes the content on the page. As I've mentioned, later in the course, we'll look more about keywords and how we can update the URLs and the browser titles to include more of the keyword phrases that we're targeting. But right now, I think that simple title of RapidWeaver Tutorials on the RapidWeaver community works perfectly well. So finally, let's go and have a look at the individual video page. And this one will be a little bit more complex simply because I'm using Total CMS to list out the videos. So I'm using the Total CMS blogging system just to, as I mentioned in the first video, to show you some blogging techniques later on in the course. So this isn't going to apply if you are using standard stacks pages or any of the standard built-in plugins, but I will step you through how you can customize the browser titles for a dynamic system like Total CMS. So your first guess might be that you could just update the browser title here, and that would be the name of the video. So in this case, the preview is RapidWeaver HTTPS. And again, we're on the RapidWeaver community. So if we preview that in the browser, let's close a couple of these out. There you can see we get the updated browser title, but the issue with this would be is that it's static and would be the same for every single video. So inside of Total CMS, you have a couple of options. If we look at the blog post first and go to the stack settings, you can see here that we can set the post title to the browser title. So this is the first, and oftentimes it's the simplest option or the best option to use. Total CMS will essentially put the video title into the browser title for us. And that might work for you, but what we want to do is something a little bit more custom. So to do that, we're going to be using a Total CMS macro feature. So if I scroll down here, I have all of the blog macros that are available. Now a macro is just essentially this piece of code that will be replaced by Total CMS with the appropriate content. So again, in our case, we would want the blog title or the video title. So we could copy that, go to the general settings, put that into the browser title. So we want the blog title in there, and then we want a pipe character, and then we want RapidWeaver community. So if we preview that in the browser, you'll see we now get the same result, but this is now dynamic. So when we browse another video later on, we'll see that browser title update with the appropriate video title in there. But one thing we aren't doing here is we're kind of forgetting the keywords that we want to be found for this area of the site. On here I want to be found for RapidWeaver video tutorials. However, inside of our browser title, we're not really including any of those keywords apart from RapidWeaver, and generally that will only be because that's in my site title. A lot of the video titles don't include RapidWeaver. They are simply describing the video content, not using the specific keywords that I want to be found for. However, when we go to the top level tutorials page, we do have RapidWeaver tutorials in there. So for the individual video pages, what we probably want to do is inside of the browser title here, we want to add that section of the site into the title. So again, we want to put RapidWeaver tutorials like so. Now if we go and preview this page, now we can see we're getting a couple more of the keywords. We have the video title, then we have the section of the site, so RapidWeaver tutorials, and then we have the RapidWeaver community site name. Now I'm trying to drill this in that what we're doing here is we're creating defined areas of the site and we're targeting each area with these specific keywords. The one thing I can't do is give you exact information on how you should do this for your site. Like I keep saying, it's going to depend on the content and how you have your site set up. All I can do is give you examples on how to achieve SEO-friendly browser titles. All I can do is give you examples of how to include the keywords inside of your browser titles. On this example, I probably wouldn't do this because I'm repeating the RapidWeaver keyword twice already here. What I would probably do for the video page is simply put video tutorials like so. Then when we refresh, we're getting those keywords in there. We've got video tutorials and RapidWeaver on every single video page. Then obviously what you're going to want to do for each individual video or each individual page is describe that page's content. And on here, this is okay, but we are going to look at how we can improve it later, but it does describe the content on this page. So what we're doing here is we're saying this is an HTTPS video tutorial for RapidWeaver. We're getting all of those keywords into the browser title, and as I mentioned in the previous video, we're also getting them in the URLs. So locally we just get tutorials and video. On the live site we'll also get the slug or the unique ID for each video, and in this case it was RapidWeaver HTTPS, like so. So as we finish up this video, the one key thing to take away is that what you're trying to do here is match the keywords that you want to be found in the URL and the browser title, but you also need to be describing the content in a natural way using both of these two techniques. We'll keep working on all of these things throughout the course, so stick with me in the next video where we will start talking about meta tags.